friends. If you don't know me, I am the writer of How to Write a Story, which is out now, where I take you from the beginning of your story all the way through to the end, and I cover everything else in between too. My goal here on YouTube with my creative writing advice series and with my book and also my writing advice blog is to help inspire you and give you the confidence to get your story out into the world. So today's video, I am going to be talking about characterization, and specifically I am going to be talking about the writing of characters in the US office. So characterization is one of the most important parts of your story. If your characters feel flat or boring or don't feel real, your audience won't connect with them and then they won't stick around, because that's the point. Your events happen and they can be exciting, your world can be magical, but it's your characters who are driving the story forward. It's your characters you connect with. It's the events happening to people that make your story interesting. So you need good characters for your story to work. Flat characters equals flat story. So I'm going to be talking about the writing in the US office specifically because of how good it is. Now, if you don't like the US office, that's fine. And I'm looking at you, my brother, right? It's fine. But you can still appreciate what is being done with the characters, even if the story itself doesn't work for you. And if you love it like I do, then I'm going to guess and I'm going to bet that most of the reason you love it so much is because of the characters. It's the characters that we're all gifting over on Twitter, right? It's the characters. So one of the things that you can learn from the US office that's really important in your characters is that they need to be flawed, right? Your characters need to be flawed because of the conflict those flaws create. If, say, Mike was the perfect boss and genuinely a good boss, not just thinks he's a good boss, a really lovely person who never annoys anybody, never does anything stupid, the show would not be what it is. It just wouldn't. That show would be flat and boring because so much of the comedy and the entertainment and the action comes from the mistakes that Mike makes. Equally so, one of the most popular characters in the show is Dwight. Now, Dwight, he could be written as a nice man who has a farm, he could still have his beet farm, and who's a bit of a nerd and likes Battlestar Galactica and beer and bears. And the show would trundle along, but so much of the conflict comes from Dwight's personality. It's his conflict with Jim, it's his conflict with pretty much everybody, and it makes the show entertaining. And even though Dwight has this sort of what's the best way to describe Dwight? Confrontational personality. Even though he has a personality that in real life you probably wouldn't get on with, he is one of the most popular and brilliant characters in the show because of who he is. So that's a really important lesson to learn. The interesting characters are the most flawed ones. Mike is hilarious and terrible, and so is Dwight. Jim, like the heartthrob of the show, is a bit of a bully. He bullies Dwight, he hides his things, he breaks his stuff, he's a dick, right? But you love him because of who he is. The flaws are part of that, and it's so important to remember. So when you do your story, remember that, hold it with you, give all of your characters flaws, things that just don't make them perfect, things that cause interactions with people around them. Because without those flaws, those interactions, those situations would just never come up and your story would lack something. You could have the same storylines, but it would be flat because everyone would just trundle along and do this and do that and move about, and it would just be so boring. And the flaws in these people is what makes it so much fun. And it doesn't have to just be for comedy, it's literally every kind of story. The perfect people are the really dull ones. So like weave your flaws into your people. Another really important thing to learn from the US office about characterization. Every single character has something else about them. They are not just focused on the storyline, right? They aren't. They have got lives beyond the office. And again, I'm going to talk about Dwight because, well, he's my favourite, so I'm going to just talk about him loads. But Dwight, the fact that he has this power presence for the office, like he is a strong personality, he's a dominating salesman, like the office is clearly a huge part of his life, and you know it is, and the longer the series goes on, the more you can see how much that office really is an incredibly important part of his life. But it's not everything. And the longer the series goes on, the more his backstory and his outside of the office life comes into play, for a reason. Because it's fascinating and it's fun and it's interesting and it's character development so much. His beet farm, his family, like these characters that only exist around that tiny bit of the story, because it's a big story with a lot of people in it. But Shroot Farms and everything that goes on there is so massive in the show, despite being only a tiny little nugget of it. Because it's real and crazy and it's part of that character. It's the same with Angela and her cats. Now, Angela could just be in the office being prissy and sort of snobby and mean and a bit of a, sort of rude to people. And that character would function, it'd be fine. She's got a flaw. The character is flawed and has opinions and has conflict within the office. Fine. You could just leave it there and let her go. But by adding the cats to Angela's life, you have got so many opportunities. You have poor Sprinkles. You have the cat being thrown up into the ceiling during the fire. You have the cat hidden in the drawer. So many of the events in the story to do with Angela are made more because of this extra part of her personality. Pam and her art. She's got more. She draws the picture that goes on the wall. She goes off to New York. These things didn't have to happen. She could just have the on again, off again sort of flirtation with Jim and the potential wedding and then all of that stuff going on. You could just leave it there and have that be her personality. But by throwing in this passion for art and that aspect of her personality which is ungrown and she's scared of, makes the character richer, makes her more interesting. So giving your characters extra about them, who they are, behind the layers of your story. Take them outside of the story that you're telling and see what else is there. Because even if those aspects of their personality or life or interests don't kind of like move your plot, don't steer it, aren't particularly essential, they just make the character that you're writing or reading about or watching more interesting and someone you want to know more, so you can then develop the things that people respond to. Another thing that is so important in your story, if you are telling a multiple protagonist story, such as The Office, every character is clear and distinct. There is not one character in The Office that's you mix them up with another one. They're a bit similar. They are not. They are all completely different people. Phyllis is completely different from Pam. Stanley is completely different from Mike. Like, these are all very clear, distinct personalities with their own interests, their own issues, their own flaws, their own positives, everything. So when you watch it, you never mix up who is who. You're never confused about what anyone's personality is like. You're never not sure who likes who has conflict with who fancies who. It's clear all the way through who these people are. And that means that you're just, the story is better because you're not trying to, who is that person? What do they want? It's more important, to be fair, in written story because at least in a visual story you can see them. But, I mean, I have watched things where I've kind of mixed them up and been like, I'm not sure who is who. And it weakens your story because then it's like, who am I caring about? What's happening? And the moment your audience is taken out of the story because they're trying to work out who so-and-so is and what they want and what's going on in their lives, they're outside your story, they're removed from it. And then you have to try and force them to come back into it. Whereas if you keep them in it, because it's clear who everybody is and they are clearly distinct characters, they're there, they haven't left. So you have to give everybody something unique about them, something distinct. And the pilot, it's sort of, they just plunge you straight in. I mean, obviously a lot of the characters on the side are kind of developed later, but, you know, Jim, he is the office prankster, he is putting Dwight stuff in Jell-O. Dwight is the office kind of, I want to say maniac, but that seems a bit mean, but you know, crank. He's there being all bossy and shouting. Mike is the obnoxious, douchey boss who you can see the problems with Mike straight away. You don't mix anyone up. They are clear and distinct personalities. So when you're writing your story, make sure that you do that. Make sure that everyone has something very clear immediately about who they are that your audience can then latch on to and just hold in their brain. They won't realize they're doing it, but they are holding that fact in their brain and associating it with that character when they see them or read them. That's who they are, that's their personality, that's what they're interested in, that's what they're like. And then you can grow it and you can make them more complicated and develop their personalities and have similarities and differences all over the place. But as long as you've established who they are quickly, that character, that personality, that interest, that thing, right? You can then grow from it and you'll have your audience bought in because they know them instantly. So that is, I think, what I'm going to cover about characterization in the office now. I will do, obviously, more videos on characterization. I will do about different stories. I've done plenty of videos about characters and the different things you can do with them to make them feel real. So just have a look over my back catalogue and you'll find it. But specifically for the office, if you want a study in characters and how to write characters and the art of making characters different and interesting and flawed but wonderful, The Office is an absolute masterclass, so I would really recommend it. Thank you very much for watching another one of my videos. You can subscribe to this channel and put on the little dingy bell. I'm putting out a video every Monday, Wednesday and Friday where I cover different styles of writing techniques and tips and tricks and hints and things you can do with your stories to just improve them and give you the confidence to write them. If you go to my website, which is jjbarnes.co.uk, over there you'll find links to all of my other work, including my writing advice and my books and my film and TV work, and all the things that I do are all on my website, as well as on my social media, so you can come and chat to me over there and tell me what you're doing, tell me what you think. And if you drop a comment on this video, you can tell me what your favourite character in The Office is. Why do you love them? What flaw do you love? What positives do you love? What relationships do you love that they have? Why do you love that character? I've told you already, my favourite is Dwight. Completely from top to bottom, Dwight is my favourite character. Who is yours? Thank you very much for watching, and I will be back again soon. Bye.